to do the hard work of facing the difficult realities of our present and of our past. Where there is conflict, violence, war, and hatred. We gather to hold space for silence as we try to make meaning of our history, to help us work for peace and justice today. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for the future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity as we join in a concerted commitment for a better tomorrow. We gather because we need community to do this hard, holy work.
Please rise and body your spirit for our opening hymn, number 159, This Is My Song. We arrive here today, as we do every Sunday, with both joys and sorrows in our hearts. And one of the many promises that we make to each other here in this beloved community is that we will both help each other celebrate the joys in our lives and help each other bear the sorrows. One of the ways that we do that, though not the only way, is through this ritual in every Sunday service. If you have a brief personal joy or sorrow to share, we invite you to come forward and drop a stone into the water and share at a microphone that will be brought forward by one of our ushers. You may also choose to drop a stone in silence if you prefer. And if you prefer not to or are unable to come forward, you can raise your hand and an usher will bring a microphone to you and I will drop in a stone on your behalf. For those of you online today, please type your joy or sorrow into the chat or the words silent stone, and that will be shared aloud here in the room and a stone will be added for you. I'll begin this Memorial Day weekend by placing a stone in the water for all those who have died in service to our nation.
Good morning. Good morning. Is it okay? Barb Gillian. Even though often, this week especially, sometimes the political news is very distressing, but I'm so grateful for the beauty of nature that we're enjoying right now, especially the lilacs and the irises and the phlox. They're glorious.
I'm Kathy Eager. Yesterday was Beverly Schmidt's 99th birthday. There's a party, was gonna be here, but she woke up with a horrid cold. I emailed everybody I could think of, and I know I missed a few. So I did have a sign on the door. And it will be at a later date because the cake's in my freezer.
I'm Lorna Prell. Some of you will remember that my husband passed away 2 years ago today. But 50 years ago today, I became the mother of my third child. So he's 50 years old today. That's a joy, I guess.
Hi, I'm Barb Becker. Some of you know my favorite bird ever is the bluebird. And I have a bluebird pair in my front yard box and my backyard box. So, yes.
Hi, I'm Mimi Law, and I have company coming from Denver. It's my brother-in-law and his two daughters going to a wedding in St. Paul. His sister's grandson is getting married, but I get to have them for a little bit, and they don't have to stay overnight. So that's good. They're staying at a hotel, and they're coming to see me like 3 days. So I'm really excited.
I was inspired by the bluebird share, so thank you for that. Sorry. Chris has a robin's nest at her house, and she was telling me about it yesterday, and she said, come and see. She said, I think the eggs are nearing hatching. And we got there, and the mother wasn't on the nest, so we were able to take a camera without getting too close and see that they had hatched, and there were probably five of them in the nest, just looking very still. And then the mother flew back a few minutes later, and we got to see the moment where they all immediately popped their little heads up, and it was such a gift. It was such a gift and a reminder that it really is the little things in our day-to-day life that can make such a difference, and so much delight, and the reminder of new life in the spring.
Hi, I'm Marcy Lovejoy, and my joy is, it's my birthday, so I was going to say happy birthday, cha-cha-cha. And although I always say my brain is 40, it's even better if I reverse the numbers on my age now. It makes it 37. So, so quite happy with that. My sister's not so happy. We're Irish twins, where she was born last year, or the previous year, June 8th, and she always hated that I was the same age as her for a couple weeks.
I am grateful to be here. My name is Mary Waters, and Margie and I took the Metro Mobility bus over here, and we got to visit, and it's just wonderful to be here and see everybody.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Coate. I'll be gone the next 2 weeks, so I'll share the two things we're celebrating. Next weekend, my husband and I are celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, so that's fun. And then the week after that, my son, our youngest, TJ, graduates from high school with honors, so that's exciting.
Do we have any online joys or sorrows? Not today.
I will pour myself and someone myself.
I'll just name, as we do each week, that in addition to the joys and sorrows that we've heard spoken aloud, there are also always some that are either too tender to be shared aloud right now or may never be shared aloud in this space. And we carry those also in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Please join me in the musical response. Generosity is one of the spiritual qualities that we aspire to as Unitarian Universalists, and also one of the tangible practices that we nurture in this community. With our offering, we give of our resources to support the work of this fellowship. We know, of course, that giving financially is only one of the many ways we support that work. We also do it with our time and with our talents. All three of those are necessary for the vital work that we do here, both for each other within the fellowship and for the wider community. We donate half of our collection every Sunday to support one of our community partners, organizations who are in alignment with our values. For the month of May, our sharing partner is Tubman, which helps people of all ages, gender identities, and cultural backgrounds who are experiencing relationship violence, homelessness, trafficking, mental and chemical health challenges, and other forms of trauma. Throughout the Twin Cities, Tubman provides safe shelter, housing, legal services, counseling, youth programming, violence prevention, community education, and other wraparound services. You can give in person as baskets are brought around, or online using the QR code either on the screen or on the printed order of service, or you can always use the Donate Online link on our website. Please give as generously as you are able.
It's a huge privilege to follow Lark. Our reading for this morning is called Remembering Well by the Reverend Paul Sawyer. The first time that I ever played taps was at a summer camp when I was 10 years old. That was the year that I started playing trumpet. So I can only imagine how it sounded. I knew there was no way that I could ever hit that high note in the end. The first time I played taps was in honor of those who died when I was in high school. When I was contacted by the local Legion commander, he asked if I would mind occasionally being called on to play taps at gravesite services for veterans. I agreed. For the next couple of years, when there was a need, I would take my place with the Legion Honor Guard, wait for the 3 volleys of shots to ring, and play the simple 24 notes of taps as clearly and as best I can. Each time, the Legion commander would quietly slip me a $10 bill. And that's about all the taps meant to me for a while. It was easy to do. It got me out of school. And I earned just a teensy-weensy bit of money. Then one day, it all changed. The man I was called upon to play for that day was the father of one of my Boy Scout leaders. You see, back then, like most of the adults I knew, I thought my assistant schoolmaster was pretty old. But his father was a World War II veteran. So now, looking back, that means that both my leader and his father were relatively young. Too young for their places there that morning as the honored dead and as the grieving son. That day, as I began to play taps, this man, who I knew as wise and kind and relatively hard in the old Boy Scout, wilderness leader sort of way, he fell to his knees, overwhelmed with tears. I'm not sure how I made it through that whole piece that day, but after that, I thought, I will never be able to play taps again. Today, whether I'm playing it or hearing it, taps means something close to what it once meant, to the reasons for which it was written and originally used. Once upon a time, taps was a signal that the camp was relatively safe. It meant that you were not under siege or under attack of any kind. It meant that you were reasonably sure that there were no enemy soldiers to worry about, at least a bugle call's distance away. To a whole camp of soldiers, the notes of taps meant that unless you were on duty, you could close your eyes and sleep away in peace. I didn't know that story or that sentiment of those years ago when I played taps for pocket money at the local cemetery. But in the meaning of taps, something speaks to me in my heart and soul about dying, and for those of us who remain, about remembering well.
On Memorial Day weekend, it seems fitting to acknowledge that for some Americans, serving the country where their heart is, in the language of our hymn earlier, means a military career. And that for some of those, that service ended in the somber tune of taps. Of course, we do not only express patriotism by serving in the military. Many of us serve our nation and its ideals in other ways, in social service agencies, in schools, and in countless other places where we do what we can to help our beloved nation live up to its promises and its potential, knowing that we are not at that goal yet. What does it mean to be patriotic in a time such as this? What moral dilemmas might our military members, whether Unitarian Universalist or not, encounter while serving now? How do we honor those who have died in service to this country without forfeiting the right to critique military actions taken by our government's leadership? I believe that to even attempt to answer those questions, we need to understand the complexity of both military service and patriotism in general. It is all too easy for those things to become oversimplified, even to the point of caricature. Maybe we think we know what a military person looks like, acts like, and believes. Whatever image we hold is probably true of some of those who serve in the armed forces, but those in military service are no more monolithic than Unitarian Universalists. And so it is no more possible to think one version represents them all than it would be for someone to do that about us. Us. Did you notice that I used that word just now to mean Unitarian Universalists, and that I was using them for military service members? That's one of the complexities we often miss, that sometimes we are also them. Sometimes Unitarian Universalists are also military families. My dad was an officer in the Air Force from 1968 to 1992. In my childhood, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, we started attending a Unitarian Universalist church in Omaha, Nebraska. Dad was stationed at the Offutt Air Force Base in Bellevue, a suburb of Omaha. One of the ministers who served that church during my childhood was an anti-war activist, not uncommon in our faith. She protested outside the gates of the base my dad worked on, and yet they respected each other as people. Some people, though, used to ask my dad how he could be a Unitarian Universalist and serve in the military. They thought those two things could not go together. My dad's explanation was that he wanted to know that the people working with nuclear missiles, that was his specialty, understood that the people on the other end of our targeting systems, which back then were focused on what was then the USSR, now Russia, that those people also have inherent worth and dignity. In short, he wanted people in the military and in military leadership who knew the difference between patriotism and nationalism. In 2018, my colleague, Reverend Jake Morrill, wrote on Facebook, "Today, the NFL announced a new policy requiring every player on the field to stand and not kneel for the national anthem. In their statement, the team owners made mention of what they called patriotism. So, Jake says, it seems a good time to reflect on the difference between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is a noble virtue, the willingness to sacrifice oneself for the ideals and the people of your country. Nationalism is not only despising other nations, internally it's also despising anyone and anything that slows or opposes the consolidation of power within a country. Patriotism welcomes dissent as a healthy test of its basic principles. Nationalism suppresses dissent since it no longer engages questions of right and wrong, or really any questions at all. Patriotism, which comes from the heart, can be inspired in others. Nationalism, which comes from fear, must be always enforced." Jake says, "I give thanks for the patriots who sacrificed themselves for our country's unchanging premise and promise, especially in a time of fevered and fearful nationalism." The oath that our military members, including quite a few members of my own family, the oath that they take is an example of this difference between patriotism, and nationalism. My brother, as some of you know, is a colonel in the Marine Corps, retiring this summer after 33 and a half years of service. On Election Day 2016, he was in command of a unit in Yuma, Arizona. The day before the election, he gathered his Marines at the end of the workday and reminded them that when they entered the military, they took an oath to, quote, "support and defend the Constitution of the United States," that their allegiance as Marines is to the nation and its ideals, not to any one person. He told them that their jobs would be no different the next day, no matter who won the election. The website military.com tells us the oath of enlistment is something that every service member must promise and adhere to for his or her entire military career. From the oath, you can see that you will be defending the Constitution, not a person. I actually haven't checked in the last couple of months to see whether it still says those exact words on the website. The oath of enlistment for enlisted personnel says, "I," insert name here, "do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God." Note that while obedience to superiors, including the President, is explicit here, it is qualified by that phrase, "according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice." There are, in other words, limits on what orders are considered lawful. And I think we're all aware that veterans who serve now in elected official capacity have been harshly penalized for pointing out that fact. The oath of office for officers says, "I," insert name here, "do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign or domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God." Note that this version for the officers says nothing about obedience. It talks about well and faithfully discharging the duties of the office. That means using discernment based not only in military training, but also in personal ethics to determine what is a faithful execution of the office. I can't help but wonder, and frankly, I don't ask, whether my brother, his wife, who is also an officer in the Marine Corps, or their peers have received any orders that gave them pause. I wonder if it is still true to him during this administration or the first Trump administration that his job didn't change because of who won the election. I can't imagine the strain of knowing that a day might come when the only way to honor his oath is to disobey a direct order from the chain of command, perhaps even from the commander-in-chief. It is a responsibility I would not want, which is why I am what I sometimes refer to as the token civilian in my family. And it's also one I would not wish on others. I am, however, deeply grateful for all those who bring such moral grounding to bear on their patriotism, rather than falling prey to nationalism. Those of us who are civilian will never have to have that exact ethical debate about when to follow orders and when to refuse them, though we may encounter something similar in our own careers. Still, we are routinely asked to do things in the name of patriotism that may violate our deeply held principles. For example, we are often asked to demonstrate our patriotism by supporting our troops. Now, I want to make another distinction here between supporting our troops, the individuals who have pledged their lives in service to our country, and supporting the way in which those troops are used. We probably all know stories, and some may have firsthand experience of the disrespect shown to many veterans returning home from the war in Vietnam. As a member of a military family, I have been relieved to see that anti-war activism in this century is directed towards those making decisions at the highest levels, the President and Congress in particular, rather than toward the individuals who pledged to support and defend our Constitution, and who are sometimes used in ways they themselves do not support, whether or not they refuse to follow those orders. It can be easy to oversimplify our dislike for war and for how the military is often used and how much money we spend on it, and to forget that the people serving in the military are also people with inherent worth and dignity. For me, this means that while I absolutely protest against how our military is used and often how it is treated, I do not villainize the individuals serving, especially because I know that for many, including some people living in poverty and some immigrants, the military is one of a limited set of viable options. Although I grew up in a military family with family members serving, sorry, my screen just jumped on me, serving in most branches of our armed services in contexts from the Civil War through today, I am not aware of any family members in my family tree who died in the line of duty. Not all families are so lucky. And so I want us to take a moment in today's service to honor those who did die in military service. That is, after all, the explicit intent of Memorial Day. And if you want to have a rabbit hole discussion with me sometime about the distinctions between Memorial Day, Armed Services Day, and Veterans Day, I'm here for that, but not in the service today. If you would like to name someone you know who died in military service, please raise your hand and we'll have someone bring you a microphone. If you are online, you may type a name into the chat to be read aloud. If you're willing, please share the person's name, which branch of the service they served in, and what conflict they died in.
I would like to recognize Michael Conley, who was a high school classmate of mine, and he died not during his service in Vietnam, but because as a result of his service there and exposure to Agent Orange.
Thank you, Barb, for naming that. And yes, let's include people who died as a result of their service, whether through medical issues or suicide.
I'd like to recognize a former student of mine, Will Shaw, who served in Afghanistan during the Iraq War. He died by suicide after returning home.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize my husband, Mel Lovejoy, who died in relation to Agent Orange and all the damage it did to him, and to his brother, Terrence Lovejoy, who spent 2 terms in Vietnam. He suicided.
To my great uncle, Harry Estes, who died in the Battle of the Bulge.
My uncle Gordon Tornes, who was in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and he was a bomber pilot, and he died on the tarmac coming in from a sortie.
I saw a hand in the back.
My brother-in-law, Tim, and my co-worker, Mark Reinsmoen, who both died because of Agent Orange.
I'd like to honor my youngest uncle, who was barely out of high school, serving in the Philippines, and he was actually in a clinic that was bombed and died as a result.
Yeah, I'm class of 2001, so the September 11th and Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts shortly after were pretty devastating to my generation, most of which I think the deaths were due to suicide after returning home, and that was the case for my high school classmate, Ben Comer, who served in the Army.
My uncle Glenn Selwood, who died from cancer from the burn pits in Afghanistan in the 90s.
I had 3 people that I went to high school with that 2 were killed in Vietnam in action. The 3rd was killed in a helicopter crash in California, but the helicopter was being driven by his brother.
I had a great, I don't know how many grandfather whose jaw was shot off during the Civil War.
I think I see a hand being waved out in the outer seating area. Can we check?
Harsha Rao, neighborhood friend, a medic in Vietnam.
Do we have anybody online, Richard?
One more. And sadly, I don't remember his name, but he was a friend of mine in my teen years. He died in Afghanistan, Army.
May we honor their sacrifices by doing our best to live out our national ideals. So I'm going to not do this for the sake of time. Normally, I would have us do another exercise where we look at the overlap between Unitarian Universalism and our military. We've seen it some already. So I'm going to do a short version of this. If you yourself served or are currently serving in the military, please raise your hand. If an immediate family member, parent, sibling, spouse, or child serves or has served, please raise your hand. If other family members or close friends serve or have served, please raise your hand. And keep them up if you've raised them at all. So take a look around for just a second. It's almost everybody. Every time I have done that in Colorado, New Hampshire, and now Minnesota, people have been surprised by how many of us, Unitarian Universalists, have a close connection to the military. I hope that helps us remember that the military is made up of individual people, people who some of us know and love, which makes it easier to remember that they have inherent worth and dignity. The football players who knelt during the national anthem were not disrespecting our troops. In fact, some of them had direct conversations with military veterans to determine whether kneeling or another form of protest would be most respectful of the troops, while still expressing dissent with some of our national policies. Those football players required by the NFL to stand for the anthem are not the first Americans to be forced to make such a display. In 2018, Japanese-American actor George Takei, creator and co-star of the Broadway musical Allegiance, posted on Facebook about his family's experience of being held in camps in the US during World War II. He said, "In the internment camps, we were forced to face the US flag each morning and recite the Pledge of Allegiance from behind barbed wire fences. Patriotism is earned by a nation that lives up to its promises. It is our sacred duty always to speak out when it does not." There is a danger of labeling that kind of speaking out unpatriotic. There is danger in saying that being a patriot means agreeing with everything the government or the president or another prominent politician says. The danger is that our nation is then not a democracy anymore. There is also a sad truth in some of the responses to protests like the kneeling football players. An anonymous meme circulating on Facebook a few years ago, which reappears regularly, said, "Racism is so American that when we protest racism, the average American assumes we are protesting America." I'm going to skip a couple of quotes because we're running short on time. It is up to us to educate ourselves about the issues we collectively face in this era. It is up to us to use our voices and our skills, whatever they may be, to engage others in those issues. It is up to us to vote in leaders who we believe will serve our nation's highest ideals rather than the interests of a select few. That's what patriotism looks like. Doing the work of embodying our national values, not the ones held by specific elected leaders, but the ones that we, the people, hold and have claimed to support since our earliest days as a nation. The ones in our Constitution and the ones on the base of the Statue of Liberty, and the ones in the patriotic songs we sometimes sing on holidays like this. None of those words are without problems, and none of them are perfectly lived out by the human beings who make up our nation. But if we do our best to live into the aspirations that are the best of what it means to be American and to love the United States, then we can be the patriots who make this a nation we can be proud of, a nation worthy of those who have died for it. May it be so. Please rise in body or spirit and join in hymn number 168, One More Step.
Everyone will take one more step.
As we prepare to end our service, may we honor those who died in service to our country by serving it ourselves in whatever way is true to our inner calling, by holding it to its highest ideals, by working for it to truly be the land of the free and the home of the brave, by giving of ourselves so that it may be a safe harbor for others and a welcoming place for all. May we, when necessary, defend our country against enemies foreign and domestic. May we be that kind of patriots. May that be our practice and our prayer. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.